That
No. Well, good morning, everybody. We are having
we are creating technical difficulties.
welcome to the world of live broadcasting. Woo! So we are without a guest this morning. We had a
Yes.
last minute cancellation of our guests, didn't we, Jules? What happened
We
there?
did. We were supposed to have Jen Julie Chapel from Oklahoma City Center here as our guest. They have a program, after school program for kids in a neighborhood where kids really need good help and good guidance, and they're wonderful people. Um, but they looked at our Facebook page yesterday and decided that they couldn't be on legally, was the word she used, because our page is political, which, number one, um, it, it, it has grieved me that it reminded me of when Carol's kindergarten teacher said that Carol had to put her picture of Jesus on her desk because people are so misinformed. They don't know what
That was
they're.
in elementary school,
That
right?
was 7 years ago, and when Carol was in kindergarten,
Yeah.
and
She brought a picture of Jesus.
she brought a picture of Jesus, and the teacher told her she had to put it in her desk. And then when I came to pick her up, Carol was furious all day, I guess, and or the 2.5 hours. It was half day kindergarten, which is long enough. But the teacher got down on Carol's eye level and said, "Honey, I'm so sorry I upset you today, but you got to keep church stuff at church and school stuff at school." And I said, "Oh, not only can she have her picture of Jesus here, she can pass them out in your classroom if she's not disrupting." And I said, "That's according to Mergens versus Board of Education Supreme Court case that was 8-1. It was, and I just happened to know that. That's a whole nother story. But I got information on students' rights for all of the schools in my community and all of the campuses. And our wonderful superintendent was more than happy to pass those out. I'm excited to see that. But the teacher she's a wonderful woman. She was misinformed. And thinking that because you have a nonprofit, you can't say anything political uh, when political can be, people think abortion is political. It's not, it's moral. They think LGBT is political. It's not, it's moral. They think anything against government is political, but you can talk pro government all day long. That's not political. You can say we want a teacher raise, but you can't say maybe parents should send food instead of have a cafeteria. You can't say that. People think that's what people think, and it's really sad, the mind control that our government has over people these days. It broke my heart that she thought they couldn't come on.
Well, I think you say mind control, but I think we've been under, propaganda. We've been propagandized from one corner to the next for maybe since the signing of the Declaration of Independence. I'm not really sure, but propaganda has been a real concern. The concern actually hasn't even been so much the propaganda as that we don't recognize propaganda when we see it.
Right.
That I think but we're going to talk about that too. So anyway, we lost our guest for today.
we lost our guest for today, and I am saddened because I really wanted to get good news out. They are good news. Um, the things that they're doing for kiddos in the Oklahoma City area. And Lord bless them for all that they do. And anywho, and you and I never have a
I
problem.
think the bottom line is if private organizations, more private organizations would step in and take on the job of what government has already taken on,
Right.
that, then, but that has to be private organizations not accepting government money to do their private organization job.
Right.
So, because you can't have a private organization if you're going to take government money, it simply doesn't work that way. Once you take in public money, you are a public organization because the public has a right to say, well, you got these tax dollars and, I don't want it spent that way.
But
Not,
taxpayers never get to weigh in on what their tax dollars go for. Never. Nobody
no,
cares. We've tried.
yeah. No, it's a frustration. So, speaking of tax dollars, Julie, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen right now I've got so many shared screens right now. It's just shocking, actually. So we're going to go to this one. This is what I'll share with you right now. So, legislators announce historic $785 million education investment.
And that's only a piece of the pie, just FYI.
So I'll read a little bit about this in just a second, but let's you and I hit the topics that we've talked about over and over again. Okay, so what are the red letter words in this title? Two of them. Historic and
investment.
Okay, so let's do historic first. So this is, first of all, it just says announce. If anybody knew English, it would be legislators announce an. You always use an before an H or a vowel, but we don't know this anymore because we don't quite know how English works, which is
right. Because we don't
anyway
anymore.
Yeah, and we'll find out why we don't know about English here in just a second. So historic. Lots of things historical are bad. So why should we be doing anything historic at this point? I mean, that's just something to think about. And Julia, you said something to me about the word investment. What was it a minute ago that you said?
If it's an investment, what are we going to see as our return on this investment? There should be a product or a service or something that we investors should be receiving back. What would that be?
So I am an investor in the stock market. I have a stock, let's say, and I put it in the stock market because investment is adding, putting something in a position in which you can reap some form of reward or benefit. So I think it's important that we point out those two things in the in that particular title. So let me go ahead and read this just a minute. After months of bickering, Republicans at the State House on Monday said they've reached an agreement that will result in a historic, so this is a paper, Norman Transcript, hello Norman Transcript, and historic $785 million investment in public schools. The funding plan includes, so you can read it with me as I go along, $500 million in new public education funding, 3,000 to 6,000 teacher pay raise depending upon experience, $125 million investment. There we go again, Julia. We're investing in the Redbud Fund. It sounds like something you'd find on the stock market. Benefiting schools that have low or no property tax revenue. Okay. 150 million or 50 million a year for a 3-year school safety improvement initiative. Each district will receive about $96,000. 10 million or about 3.3 million annually for a 3-year reading specialist pilot program. 6 weeks of paid maternity leave for teachers. A shift in school funding aimed at helping rural districts with increased transportation costs and districts that have large numbers of economically disadvantaged students. The plan, which did in fact pass both chambers and was put into law, represents a $625 million, now hold on, recurring. What does recurring mean?
Over and over.
Over and over.
Forever and ever.
Investment in public schools.
So it's going to recur whether it does good or not. So how are those scores a coming?
Well, let's look at that a second, but let's do this. Representative Chad Caldwell from Enid, he's the one that wears the bow tie, said the historic package marks the largest single-year education funding increase in state history. He said it benefits every school, regardless of where it's located or whether it's traditional charter. It's just across the board. Okay? You just get whatever, here you go. You have this money. It's not my money. I mean, a sliver of it is, but you take all this money.
What a gift from our legislators. I know he's proud.
I know. I'm so happy about that. It's a great day. It's a great day for all Oklahoma families, Caldwell said. We finally got together and figured out a package that will help every single family and child in Oklahoma. Number one, Representative Caldwell. It's not going to help my kids.
It's not going to help my kids.
To say that is a bald-faced lie. And if you don't like the word lie, we'll say misrepresentation. So this is not true at all. Not only that, it doesn't help families who continue to want to homeschool. It doesn't help families that simply won't help their kids outside of school. It
doesn't help families that are the producers. If you're not a government worker, it doesn't help you.
But it is important that Representative Caldwell wants to tell us. I think you probably feel the mood is lightened a little bit on the Capitol today, so I think everybody's excited. So what Representative Caldwell is saying, and everybody in Oklahoma needs to have ears to hear this, they're excited by spending your money.
As a gift from them.
That's what excites them, is spending your money and gifting it to other people or other things. Okay.
It's called redistribution of wealth. And they're really, really excited about it.
So here we go. This was the legislators' announce historic. Okay, so you said something to me a minute ago while I was going through this, and you asked me how Oklahoma schools are doing. Is that what you asked me?
Yes, I did. How are Oklahoma schools?
Oh my gosh!
The return on our investment.
Okay, there is a little website that we need to go to, and I'm going to share it with you right now.
Just an aside, in Oklahoma, our budget for education is over half of our state budget already.
What?
So we should already see an excellent return on our investment.
Okay. Well, so let's see. Shall we see what we have here as our, okay. So here is the school report card. I'm going to go with the 2 largest districts in Oklahoma because I'm just going to pull schools out of them. Okay. Because my thought is the big schools get the most money because they have the most pupils, right?
So they're the smartest kids.
Well, and They certainly have the most. I mean, I've been to Union Public Schools. So let's Union Public
The
Schools.
community school, they offer the most services, as far as we know, in the state of Oklahoma to their students and parents, because, of course, they offer services that, for the students and the parents and anybody that qualifies.
Healthcare and all that kind of stuff.
Healthcare and the whole kit and caboodle.
Okay, so the enrollment for Union Public Schools is 698,577 in 2022, according to butts in the seats, which is how they count. Okay. About the school report cards. Report card measures displayed here serve as indicators. Now they're very good about, hey, we're going to tell you it's not exactly just an indicator of how public schools are serving students in a variety of areas. Measured at different points, indicators work together to provide a snapshot of school performance. So let's see their, okay. So how prepared are students for the next grade or course? So if we go to academic achievement, all right, they earned, this is Union Public Schools, earned a grade of 21.9 out of 45.
What?
I think it says 21.9 of 45. Can you see that on your screen? It says it right here.
It does say that. That's pretty remarkable. And not in a good way.
Wow, okay.
No return on investment there.
18 schools. Oh, look at this. This is fascinating. 18 schools scored 0%.
Oh, wow.
Okay, these were Emerson Alternative, Anderson ES in Tulsa, John Hope Franklin in Tulsa, Hawthorne in Tulsa, Unity Learning Academy in Tulsa, Skelly ES, Whitman ES, Central Middle School. They're pretty much all Tulsa and Oklahoma City. Putnam Heights Academy. These earned 0. Wait, now hold on a second. So if I invested, let's just say $100,000. Let's say I invested $100,000 in the stock market.
Right.
So if we're going to use that,
it all.
So I got 0 back. So my investment literally earned me 0.
Well, and you lost your 100,000.
What? Oh, yeah. Okay. So here are the student demographics, because we have to break everything down into race, right?
Yeah.
So here's the composite.
I'm going to throw this out there. The only way to stop racism is to stop putting it on all these forms. If we just, don't use that as a demographic, then people will stop worrying about race and talking about race and fighting about race and all those things. Just going to throw that out.
So here's what I'm going to do, because the majority of the population, a large chunk, not a majority, a large chunk of the population is white. We'll start there first. Okay, so this is English language arts. All right, so I'm going to go over here and I'm going to look. 47% met their target proficiency. Now I'm just saying proficiency. That means that I can read a basic word on a page. I'm just proficient. At least I can read something. Okay, right. That's what proficiency means. 53% were below. 53% of Union Public Schools, the kids enrolled, can't even read to a proficiency level. Okay.
And what is proficiency again?
Proficiency is basic, just, a basic measure. They can read words on a page to a certain degree. This isn't outstanding. This isn't, I can read a Jane Austen book. This is, I can read, a minimum of See Jane Run. Okay.
All right.
So the next largest population in Union is Hispanic. So let's go over to Hispanic. And it says, met target proficiency, 39%. Below target, 58%. All right. Maybe it's just English. So let's look at math. Okay, so this is mathematics. We'll start here again. Net target proficiency, 43%. Below target proficiency, 55%. Now I'm going to stop right here and I'm going to ask you, Julia. You're going to come to me and you're going to say, Jenni, I have this investment opportunity for you.
Yes.
And I say, oh, Julia, I'm totally interested in that. And you say something to me like, yes, 55% of all people didn't quite get their investment back. But still in all, you should invest in this.
Right. Yeah. Not going to go far, is it?
I wonder if you were in the private sector and Julia, you made a widget. And I bought the widget from you because you're my friend and you make a widget and I want to support you. So I bought the widget from you.
And we're all about widgets. Widgets are good.
And it's the free market.
Right.
So your widget only performed 43% of the time. So under half, your widget performed.
More likely it doesn't work than it does.
I don't think I'm going to buy the widget from you anymore.
Yeah, sorry about that.
I'm sorry, Julia. I cannot do business with you anymore. That widget only performs 43% of the time. I'm driving in my car and the widget operates my brakes.
Right. Yeah, that could be bad.
Over half the time, I'm slamming into a tree.
Brakes are important.
Okay, so let's see. Science,
Is math important? Just question. Is math important?
Well, I don't.
Would math be an important thing for someone to learn if we were investing in someone learning math?
Well, I don't know. I'm not really sure that math, what does math really do? Don't you hear the argument all the time? I'm never going to use this outside of school.
Yeah, apparently it's not too important because our kids are not learning it.
Okay, so we're going to go, this is science. I'll get it down here. So I haven't looked on my, oh yes, we can see that on there. Okay. Because I don't have two monitors, I can only look at one page at a time.
Oh, shoot. Yeah.
Okay, so let's look at science, but let's also not forget, it's science, right? So science.
What is science? The latest trend.
Well, when I was in science, when I did science, and I have numerous scientific papers that I have authored, it actually meant something. Data analysis, the truth in the data. Now it's just kind of, whatever. But met target proficiency at 49%, below target 49%, which is weird because that doesn't, because met target. There were 2% of all kids in Union met the target.
2%. Wow. That's
all right. So let's not just pick on Union. Let's go back. Okay. And let's do John Marshall High School in Oklahoma. This was where I graduated. Okay. So enrollment is 709. Wow. I guess this was after they moved the new high school. They ripped the high school I graduated from down and they put this new one in. So this is 709. So I think that's a very small sample. So we're going to go to, list another Douglas High School. Woo! Douglas High School. Here we go. All right. Oh, that's even less. 479. Wow, that's very interesting. Maybe we ought to do this because maybe we're not comparing apples to apples and I don't want to be accused of that. So I wonder if since we did Union, we could do Oklahoma City Public Schools. Will it do that as a district? No, it will not. So that's very interesting. All right, so let's look at, we'll go down here and pick, wow, there are a lot of inactive ones, actually. Let's do Putnam. Let's do Santa Fe South. Oh, Dana, is it sarcasm and or common sense Friday? Did you see what Dana wrote? Uh-oh, I think Julie is frozen for a second. So I'll just continue on in the event that it's not me that's frozen. Okay, so let's go back and let's look at Santa Fe South High School. So Santa Fe South High School doesn't even list any enrollment for 2022. There's nothing actually even on the page. So I'm going to go back and go to another school. Let's see which one we can pick now. Let's try Capitol Hill. We'll just go with that one. Okay, enrollment there is 1,373 students. So here's academic achievement. This is for Capitol Hill. Capitol Hill academic achievement is out of a possible points of 45. The school received 12%. Capitol Hill, 12%. So let's go and look at what we have here. So the district, so Oklahoma City Public Schools has an academic achievement of 7.7%. Wow. The state somehow has 48.7. Capitol Hill has 11.8. Okay, so let's go down here and let's look at English. Okay, let's look at all. So in English, 79% of all students at Capitol Hill were below the target. Below the target. Okay, so let's look at math. 79% of all Capitol Hill students were 79% below the target. I'm still trying to figure out where my investment is at all. There is all kinds of information, I have to say, on this particular website. I just suggest, so their 4-year graduating average is 69%. So let's think about this just 1 second. They're graduating 69% of the kids, but 79% of them can't read or do math. How does that happen? So their 6-year average is they graduate 73% of all of the students. But again, they have chronic absenteeism is 40, not English language proficiency progress is 9%, probably because when you look at the about the school, and you see that the school has, I think the majority of their students were Hispanic, so more than likely second language students, which would make it hard to have English proficiency. So let's see if we can find, this is Oklahoma City again. There are 32,000 students enrolled in Oklahoma City Public Schools, which seems odd to me because did we not look at Union? Which is in Tulsa, outside of Tulsa.
Hello.
There you are. What happened? Did you go night night?
It just quit. It just started spinning, and then it was all. So I unplugged and replugged, and I'm
Well,
back.
I'm so glad you're back with me. It was very quiet.
Yeah. Yep. Thank
Again,
goodness Shayla's participating.
again, because I can't see. There she is. Participation diploma. Oh, there we go. Okay. All right. And then I didn't even plug that in. Okay. And then, so what you missed while you were gone on your little, walkabout, your little roundabout there is we looked at Oklahoma City Public Schools, which is really an interesting thing. And I'll go back here to looking at the high school that we just looked at, which was Capitol Hill. Capitol Hill High School had, so I went to, academic achievement. So Capitol Hill High School had 7.7% achievement. The district had 7.7%. So that's Oklahoma City Public Schools. It's in that district. 7.7% achievement. Capitol Hill had 11.8. And here was the point that I made. So the majority of students here are Hispanic. So you're going to probably have English as a second language, which is going to make it tough. But when you look at, and I'm hoping that I can find where I was before, graduation. So they were graduating 69% of their classes, but then 79% of them weren't proficient in English.
Wow.
Which is why Dana said a participation degree.
Yes, absolutely.
So we can't, I guess I'm absolutely, we just plugged in some schools here. I mean, we could continue plugging in schools all day, but I think it's really, I think it's, look, we could go anywhere. We could pick any place, and it actually tells, this is a really good website. I have to say, it's a very good website. We have Aztec Charter High School. So we could go to Aztec Charter High School because charter high schools are supposed to do better, right?
Right.
And I would have to say this one, out of a possible 45 points, this school got 44%. But again, the state average was 49%. And yet we're told that charter schools do better. So
how does the overall, that's really curious. We're just randomly selecting schools, and that says 49%, but none of the ones we've looked at were 49% proficient yet.
Well, and again, this is district. I guess all charter schools is the district for I would have to look that up and see. Now, I will say Aztec Charter Public Schools did, or charter did get 43.6% to the state 48.7, but they're still below.
Right.
So we could go on and on and on and on and on with this today, but here's something that we wanted to talk about. So let's go back home. And so I was looking at, Julie and I looked at this before we got on the air this morning, and it's really interesting.
Almost late because it was so confusing.
Yeah. So here's what they say about school report cards. They use several indices across multiple indicators, including academic achievement, academic growth, chronic absenteeism, progress in English language proficiency assessments, post-secondary opportunities, and graduation. So these are what they look at. Well, when we went back, and I'm hoping I'll be able to find this easily, because this website, while I have to say it's quite good, this is middle school. I wanted high school. Are you there, Jules?
Yeah.
Just checking on you.
Yeah, still here. I'm reading. Sorry.
since I can't see you. Um,
Probably not good for videos, for podcasts when you sit there and read your information
I know.
here.
I know. Okay, so we looked at English, and here's what it said. Um, oh, and this is now even a different one. This indicator shows the average value earned by students based on their performance on state tests in English language arts, math, or science across two equally weighted components. The ITE component awards values for students that meet or exceed their priority student group targets, and the PLS component awards values for students that score basic, proficient, or advanced. So this is interesting. We had found something earlier that it says one of the things that they used was WIDA. Access for ELL's WIDA, a suite of secure, large-scale, summative English language proficiency assessments for English language arts, which the collective name was WIDA, Summative English Language Proficiency Assessments.
Well,
So we had,
I'm sure most taxpayers know exactly what they're talking about, right?
are we supposed to? I thought we were just supposed to give them our money so that we could keep our houses and shut up about it.
Yes, yes.
I'm going to go back to Union because maybe that's where we found it. And it's interesting to me that several of these are not the same. So I'm pretty sure. Let's look at more details. English. No, this says the same thing. So I'm trying to remember where we actually found that. But the bottom line here, Julia.
Yes.
What kind of investment are we getting again here?
It doesn't seem to be giving us a good return. I would like to see our students being able to read, graduating from high school, little things like that. But for academic purposes, not for all the junk that seems to be. I mean, let's face it. When we've got parents now going to school board meetings, and I never get reports back that those school board meetings were about math, English, how to make this better.
Oh, that's a good point.
It's always about their mental health. As a matter of fact, our local news, I on Fox 25 and Channel 9 both are brought to you by Oklahoma State Department of Health. So there's another investment of our money. And by the way, they don't have enough they can't even take patients from the ER to the mental health facilities because there's not enough room. But we're going to spend money on news, sponsoring the news. So again.
So let's look at the nation's report card. Okay. Now I remember COVID, right? Okay, so this is compare the average score in 2022 to other states. So here is Oklahoma. All right.
Oh boy.
Here's the nation. Okay. At one point in time, we actually caught up with the nation, and it looks like that was in about 2015. But we have dropped precipitously. All right. So you know what we might do actually, since this is kind of just the average scores right here, you know what we might do is we might just wonder how many times has the legislature pumped in money into public schools?
Oh, I think probably every year.
There's some kind of cost of living thing that they do, but we've had House Bill 1017. We've had we had to gamble. Don't forget, we had to gamble.
Oh, yeah. Had to get the gambling.
get gambling. Oh, we had to have marijuana.
And marijuana.
We had to smoke marijuana so that we could help public schools.
Right. And,
Yeah, I forgot about that. So let's see.
The pornography,
Yeah, so we have infused the state with the very moral and upright practice of gambling, all to help public education in
right.
Oklahoma. We have infused
That
the
was
Oklahoma
solve the problem, right? That was
yes,
to solve the whole problem.
right. And we have infused the Oklahoma population with the use of marijuana. And lots of people are going to get mad at me. And at this point, I don't really care. Write me a note. I don't care. So originally, this was to help people who needed it for medical conditions.
Right.
And now you can go get a pot card from anybody you want and go to a pot place to get pot. So to say that we don't really have, I mean, I think that's most of the reason. I think fortunately enough Oklahomans are savvy to the fact that we got screwed over by that idea and the practices.
But if everybody's high, then
yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, that's again, the way you make a country fail, the way you do it is by making the people, I don't know, for lack of a better word. I mean, we're Christians, so like it or not, sin, we're forcing or we're allowing, we're helping people sin, gambling, smoking pot.
using their tax dollars to promote immorality. That's what is happening, which is what every Marxist dreams of.
But, the ends justify the means, or the means justify the ends, or the ends justify the means. Does it really matter anymore? And so,
as long as government grows.
But we had to do that to help public schools.
Sure, because that's always helpful to heap debt upon debt upon debt on our future generations.
So here's what we've gotten for our investments. Okay, in gambling, in marijuana, in whatever. Here's what we've gotten for our investments. And yet, our Oklahoma legislature gave an historic investment of I had to go back and look, $785 million. So has anybody ever stopped to think about the fact that you're helping families by taxing families to pay for education that doesn't work?
That will be debt on our children's shoulders. Just throwing that in there while we're at it.
So our legislators are either not super smart or they're definitely trying to hurt all of us. Is that where we are?
I think most of them are, they want to pay for their next campaign or get a great job when they get out.
And the sad thing about it is we know a lot of people there that are good people. But they have access to the same information that we have. Where are the people that are going to stand on the floor of the Senate or the House and say, we have pumped money in to get this. Why should we pump any more in? I'm buying a widget from you, Julia. Right. You can't possibly make that work any more than 48% of the time. 52% of the time, I'm plowing my car into a tree because the widget that's working my brakes don't work.
Well, and that brings me to, I'm going to segue into, one of the things that had the teachers unions hopping mad at Ryan Walters was because he said he would refuse federal dollars that brought in this junk. And let's face it, the federal dollars have brought in a lot of problems in education, way more problems than solutions.
Okay, well, you can see on there, I've just been scrolling through while you've been talking so people can see where Oklahoma, the gold, and I mean, you can see where we are in these various math, English, wow, over here in 98, we were well above the state average. But the more money we put in, the crappier those get. And that was, let's see, what was this? Math, reading. This is reading.
Wow,
Reading.
Oklahomans could read better than most.
In 1998, but now in 2022, we're vastly below. And somebody told me the other day, who were we talking to? And I told them that there is a state law. I mean, I remember it. There is a state law that says that Oklahoma reading programs must use phonics.
Oh, right. Who were we?
Remember?
Yes.
And they said, the person said, no, we're not using phonics. We're mainly using whole word.
Yeah.
Well, if we're using whole word reading programs, and don't forget, we just, that part of that 800 million gajillion was reading. So hold on a second. I'm reading here just to 10 million, or about 3.3 million annually for a 3-year reading specialist pilot program. Here's where we are in reading right now. So if you're going to come in and do whole word, this reading pilot program is going to be whole word language. I guarantee you it's going to be down here. We're just going to keep going to the toilet. We've got to do phonics. Yes, there's some whole word that you have to put in there, you know, because English is a weird language, but you maintain phonics as your base.
And Jenny, you know, they're like all this focus on mental health and kids not feeling good and all of the things. You know, being successful at reading, being successful at math, being successful in anything lifts your mental health. If you're succeeding at things, you are mentally healthier than if every time you turn around you are failing, or you're succeeding and not getting at least a pat on the back, especially kiddos, you know, to be acknowledged that yes, you did something really great, you worked hard and you achieved something, but you know, we're not going to do that. We're going to take people's money and give it to you because you can't achieve it. That's bad.
I mean, I hope people are watching this. I mean, we have some people on this morning, and I hope people are watching this. We have, what? You want kids to read? Yeah, I know, isn't that weird, Dana? We would like to have kids reading. And for our historic investment, we would like to have kids reading. So,
and for the mental health, we would like to have kids reading.
Well, you know, I wrote a Facebook screed the other day because I finished a book that I really, really enjoyed. It was called the Goshawk, and it was written by a man named T.H. Eliot. T.H. Eliot is, he wrote The Once and Future King. He's one of my favorite authors of all times, but he wrote in the 40s and 50s. I mean, I'm sorry, I don't read today's stuff. It's basically garbage. But I read it and I was realizing how many kids couldn't possibly even begin to read that book. They can't even read See Spot Run. How in the world are they going to read a book that was written by a British author using sometimes Old English, even from the 1940s or 50s? And it struck me that we're going so far backward that we're going to end up back in the dark ages where people, because you were just talking about mental health, right? And how you feel about yourself when you succeed at something. Back in the dark ages, only the rich people were able to get an education. And so the poor people basically got bupkis, right? So if they had to sign a document or anything else like that, they put an X, because they couldn't even sign their name. They put an X, right? That X was all they could do to tell anybody about who they were as a person. Now you look at today's kids, ask them to sign their name. They don't know cursive. They don't know how to sign their name. They know print because they can text with that and they can do English print, but they can't even sign their name. They can't even use cursive.
Right.
We're going backwards, Jules.
Yes, we are. And by design. I mean, China's one of the things my mother, who been an educator for a long, long time, um, one of the things she would get so well annoyed that they would say China's uh, academic score is this and America's academic score is that. And China would always come out ahead. And my mother said, except for the fact that China only educates the top 10% of their students. She
Right.
said, you just, if you want to compare, let's compare China's score to our top 10%. And I never forgot that. It's like, okay, so the in Marxist communist circles, that's what happens. You only educate the a few of your people so you can control the rest to do the labor. That's what that's what or let's see, so that you have an effective workforce. That is a communist term, workforce. And we are participating. I see that word everywhere and it sends shivers down my spine.
It's important to remember that the communist plan, which we're well underway at this point now.
Chef, yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I think we checked off every box in the manifesto except
yeah,
for one, and I can't remember exactly what that one is. And I'm scrolling through right now because I wanted to make the point while we're on this topic right now. So many people kind of yawn and they think to themselves, well, what really? I mean, what am I going to do about this? What difference does this make to me if kids can't read? My kids are already uh, uh, educated, that kind of thing. Well, I read an article and I posted it, and I for some reason I now can't find it. I should have had it ready before we got on. I read an article that was absolutely so important, and at some point I'll find it and I'll see if I can't put it. Here it is. Here it is. All right, before I share my screen with the other thing, I'm going to go back and I'm going to share my screen here so that you guys can see this particular one. So hold on just a second. So this was, I every once in a while I read this group called Palladium, and I don't always agree with them, by the way, but this was an article. Complex systems won't survive the competence crisis. And if you'll notice, there's a picture of a firefighter here. I live in a small town. We have a volunteer fire department. Lots of small towns do. It's been noted, and it was noted when I was mayor of our small town, that it is becoming impossible to find volunteer firefighters. Nobody in the community wants to do anything like that. But that's not just the issue. If you have kids who can't read, and don't forget at the beginning of this, we showed you the data. We didn't conjecture or make it up. We showed you the state collected data. So if we have a situation in which 49% of kids or 52% of kids literally can't read proficiently, how are we going to go on to have, let's say, plumbers? What about electricians? What about any service industry at all?
right.
Because don't forget the academics, it doesn't matter what kind of work that they do, so long as they're the right ethnicity, so long as they're the right gender, whatever, they're going to get by. So it doesn't really matter what they produce. That the rest of us who actually have to work for a living are going to bump up, and who actually have to use services are going to bump up against the fact that we literally are unable to find people to do jobs that we've taken for granted for decades in this country because we haven't taught kids enough math or English to even read a book or write their name in cursive. If you don't think that's despicable, on top of our $758 million investment by the state legislature, I'm not sure what to say.
Yeah, well, as long as we're going to just keep giving money to, and quite frankly, a lot of the really great teachers have left teaching. So we're the standards for our teachers are getting lower and lower and lower, and not to mention the indoctrination of our teachers, and then they hire a bunch of counselors. I mean, I'm sorry, our administration is, we could pay for a lot of good teachers if we would gut our administration costs. But
Oh, well, that's absolutely clear. But why would we do that when we can just give them more money? So basically, I wanted to just go through I'm not going to read, this was a very long article, and I'm not going to go through the whole thing. But if you do want to read it, it's from Palladium, and it's called Complex Systems Won't Survive the Competence Crisis. And so I'm just they talk about a pipeline shut down due to ransomware. Power lines owned by PG&E started a wildfire that killed 85 people. 500,000 containers on cargo ships weren't able to dock. Trains have been carrying hazardous and flammable chemicals have been derailing right and left. We hear them. Air traffic control cleared a FedEx plane to land on a runway occupied by a Southwest plane preparing to take off. Eye drops contaminated with antibiotic-resistant bacteria killed 4 and blinded 15. And here's what he says. While disasters like these are often front page news, the broader connection between the disasters barely elicits a mention. America must be understood as a system of interwoven systems. The healthcare system sends a bill to a patient using the postal system, and that patient uses the mobile phone system to pay the bill with a credit card issued by the banking system. All these systems must be assumed to work for anyone to make even simple decisions. So what they're saying is you can't even, if you don't think systems are going to work, how do you function? Right? And if they don't work, how do you function? All these systems must be assumed to work for anyone to make even simple decisions, but the failure of one system has cascading consequences for all of the adjacent systems. As a consequence of escalating rates of failure, America's complex systems are slowly collapsing. The core issue that changing political mores have established the systematic promotion of the unqualified and sidelining of the competent. So what they're saying is our society worries so much about what gender you are and what you look like that they're promoting people that don't have the skills to be able to do the jobs. And on top of that, we're simply not educating people to have the skills to do the jobs. We saw that. This has continually weakened our society's ability to manage modern systems. At its inception, it represented a break from the trend of the 1920s to the 1960s when the direct meritocratic, and it's a hard word, just when you have a merit-based system, which is meritocratic, merit-based system is your merit. You get the job based on your merit, how well you do, not what you look like or group you're affiliated with.
Showing up and working hard.
Correct. That evaluation of competence became the norm across vast swaths of American society. And basically what they say is that that's not the case anymore. And not only is that not the case anymore, but then we simply don't haven't educated children well enough to be able to do these jobs. So these are, if you really honestly don't think that what Julie and I are talking about this morning affects you when your plane's hit by a FedEx plane.
Yeah. Well, and let me tell you something. My husband, a couple decades ago now, worked for Gulfstream Aerospace right there on Rockwell and Council Road. And they sent, well, they sent those jobs to Mexico. Um, a lot of it was because of government regulations were getting too onerous for them to stay in business here.
Yeah.
So
That
they
is another problem.
to Mexico. But what they did at that facility, they already had their Mexico plant, but at the facility on Rockwell and Council, they fixed the mistakes that came from Mexico. Well, they eliminated that. And they did send some, they did send people from here to Mexico to run that plant. But the fact that our plane parts, a Gulfstream, which is the top of the line, if you've got any kind of money you want, that's what you buy is a Gulfstream. The problems are not being fixed anymore, and that's a pretty scary situation.
Well, so let's bump back because we're over an hour. And at this point, I don't think we're going to hit the hour, and I don't really want to. So if you'd like to stay tuned, please stay tuned. We'll try not to take up the rest of your day. And if you want to come back and view it later, we're always on YouTube and Rumble. So I wanted to get back because we were going to talk about this. Oklahoma schools to receive federal funding. Superintendent aims to silence critics with early allocation. Now, I'm not going to win friends, and I'm sorry.
Right.
That's never been my job, actually. My job has always been to...
Our favorite thing about Ryan Walters was that he wasn't afraid to say, I'm not taking federal monies if it brings in stuff that we don't want to the state of Oklahoma. That was our favorite thing about him.
Well, and I think he said numerous times, I'm going to get rid of federal funding. I want to get rid of federal funding because it ties us to a bunch of this nonsense. And so at this point in time, because the left can't close their mouths and they have to be ugly.
They threatened him and sued him over it. I mean,
yeah. Well, and now they want to, impeach him and, whatever. I mean, I'm sorry. I'm trying to figure out what he's doing. But my mind is open and I'm all for letting him finish his term. I'm certainly not going to get on the impeachment bandwagon by any stretch of the imagination. I just happen to be, I don't vote for a person because just simply because they're a Republican. I won't vote for a Democrat, but I mean, just simply won't. That philosophy doesn't work for me at all.
Well, not a Democrat that is actually registered as a Democrat.
Well, and that's correct. And that's a good point too. That's an excellent point. Because I'm convinced that part of the reason why we didn't get things accomplished this last legislative session was because we have a whole bunch of people with an R behind their name that are Ds.
Yeah. Well, they're Marxists, actually. I mean, they're not even, you can show the track record. They grow government and then 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 they with a gigantic R beside their name, then they publish how wonderful it is that they grew government.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Well, so basically the left came out and skewered, Walters and then wants to, run him out of town on a rail and have
they still do, and they still will try.
Oh, they will. I mean, and that's, I think my favorite thing about the left. They're the biggest bunch of whiny crybabies ever. It's like the picture of that woman. Remember when Trump won?
Oh yeah, the safe spaces that had to be created. That was hilarious.
It's like, oh my gosh, really, sincerely? Okay, so if you don't like it, then work to change it. But this whole screaming, crying, hissy fit, I'm going to get them, I'm going to get rid of them, or this is so, it's just, I'm sorry, it's stupid. It really is. Pull up,
It,
if in this country we knew how to pull up our big girl boy and panties and girl panties and actually just go on with our days, I'm not sure what we would do. We might start succeeding again.
acting like toddlers should not be the winning, the winning way.
The winning strategy.
Yes. And
Yeah,
it
even
is.
I know even my toddler practicing toddler
Oh yeah,
whatever wasn't a winning strategy in this house.
Apologies to the good toddlers of the world, because my kids were not my kids. Well, Carol was going to try throwing a tantrum one time, and Paul and I told her she was doing it wrong, and we got on the floor and threw a better tantrum than what she threw.
Okay.
She never did that again.
Yeah. It doesn't look, it's not very fun when you get to see it. Okay. So here is my, the thing that I just now hate. I'm not going to try to, ameliorate my verbiage. I don't care. This is the thing I hate about politics. So Walters gets skewered by the left. And then after telling everybody, how bad federal funds are, which we've, Rope has begged.
Completely agree. They are bad.
Yes. So then he comes out and says, well, now we've got all this funding and we need to get it in right now. So OSDE will receive a record amount entitled record amount.
There we go. Breaking records again.
Yay. Historic and record.
Yes.
Pretty much the same. Will receive a record amount in Title I Part A funding this year from the federal government with an allocation of, are you ready for this? Yeah. $224,661,041.
Yeah, so just imagine heaping that debt onto your child.
Last year,
they're going to be slaves. They are slaves.
OSDE received $211 million. Oklahomans will be receiving record title funding for the upcoming school year, State Superintendent Ryan Walters said in a press release. My office has been working tirelessly to ensure that every school in the state has the funding needed to adequately educate our kids. I'm sorry, Superintendent, but that is not what you said. And I voted for you.
Money clearly does not help in their education as far as reading, math, science, the real things. And science is wobbly there, but
I will continue to keep a watchful eye on every federal dollar to make sure that our schools are focused on foundational learning tools, not indoctrination. Okay, now here's my point. How in the world are you going to keep an eye on every dollar? You don't even see the dollars. The dollars often go to schools, and how are you going to find out how are you going to track each dollar? How much is that going to cost to track each dollar? Wouldn't it be simpler to wean Oklahoma off of that instead of kowtowing to what the left says and going for historical levels of funding?
Yeah. Debt, clearly we don't know any math at all, because if you know any math at all, you know that debt accrues debt and is a never-ending cycle that we have got to stop. And every federal dollar, because we're already $34 trillion in debt, every federal dollar is just debt. It is not a dollar, it's a debt.
So here's what we have here. Title I, improving basic programs operated by local education agencies. Title II, Title I, Part B, state assessments. Let's not even.
Let's collect some data and throw out,
Title I, Part C, education of migratory children.
Oh boy.
Title I, Part D, prevention and intervention programs for children and youth who are neglected, delinquent, or at risk. See, I thought that it used to be that private organizations, nonprofit organizations took care of children like that,
Yeah.
starting with our churches. But we'd rather have government do it and
Yeah.
then
Because
point
they
the
can steal from your neighbor to pay for it, or, just put debt on your children.
Title II, Part A, supporting effective instruction. Well, that's actually kind of a laugh, isn't it? Because didn't we look at the school report card?
Yeah, we did.
Where was effective instruction in that? Clearly, we're not getting that.
No.
Title III, Part A, English language acquisition state grants. We do know that that means that people who are here in Oklahoma that don't speak English need help speaking English. In the 1980s, we had ESL programs that were run by private organizations that were after school programs. I know for a fact because my mother did after school ESL programs that helped kids and adults actually who were here that were unable to read.
Yeah.
But again, the federal government has taken over that. Title IV, Part A, student support and academic enrichment. Well, aren't parents to support students and provide them enrichment? I was a homeschool teacher, so I provided enrichment for our kids. We went on numerous field trips with other kids. We saw a whole lot of the state of Oklahoma. That was pretty enriching. Wonder how parents are unable to do that. Okay. Title IV, Part B, Nita M. Lowry, 21st Century Community Learning Centers. We did a series on 21st Century Community Learning Centers years and years ago when we were informed by one of our friends in southeastern Oklahoma that his son was being offered psychological services without his permission, and that was through 21st Century Community Centers. It's a Marxist ploy. We've been paying for them ever since. But
Right.
parents who, are unable for whatever reason to find after school programming for their children or to stay home with their children, put them in these programs, and it's a huge source of propaganda and things that should not be done to children. So I'm hoping, Secretary Walters, that you're looking into 21st century community grants, because those have always been a problem, and we've reported that for almost a decade.
Yeah.
Title V, Subpart 2, Rural and Low-Income School Programs. McKinney-Vento Homeless Assistance Act, Education for Homeless Children. So I want to bring in some
homelessness, all this money being spent, homelessness is going up, is on the rise. So all this money we're spending, now we need more for home. I wonder why that is. They're spending all this extra money on mental health, all this extra money on education, and yet our homeless population is on the rise.
So I'm hoping, and it didn't work, so I'm going to try again. I put together some slides. Oh, I see why it didn't work. Hold on a second. I put together some slides. You and I talked about this before we went on this morning.
Right.
This ought to do it. Okay, you heard us talk about the McKinney-Vento thing and half of, and all of these things that we're getting federal funding for. But the one thing that I don't think, and we talked about this with Josh Burkeen the other day. So under Obama, we had these 4 pillars of, Obama reconstructed our education.
I mean, we had No Child Left Behind before that. So,
well, true. But this has been the most recent thing. And one of the things that they did was the state longitudinal database here. And where are they getting information for this state longitudinal database? This is a page of this is the YRBS, Youth Behavioral something survey, recreation survey, something like that, that's put together by the CDC, that was not supposed to be allowed in public school classrooms and children were not supposed to do these without a signature of a parent, because of these. And we'll talk a little bit about these questions here in a second if you can't read them. But because of the fact that the Oklahoma State Health Department now administers these, they're now what?
Then it's okay.
But it's outside of federal law. The CDC was covered by federal law, which meant that any survey that it did had to be accompanied by a permission slip from a parent. Now they've given this over to the Oklahoma State Department of Health. The Oklahoma State Department of Health administers these disgusting surveys and therefore doesn't have to ask permission. These are done in middle school every other year. I don't know if they were done this year or not, so we'll have to find out whether they're coming again next year or not. But these are some questions. Have you used marijuana? Have you tried to do well in school? Have you used LSD, cocaine, meth, or other illegal drugs, been suspended from school, liked school, carried a handgun, sold illegal drugs, regularly attended religious service? In this country, you're not allowed to ask children about their religion. You're not. Stolen or tried to steal a motor vehicle such as a car or motorcycle, been arrested, dropped out of school. These, and I didn't even put the sex questions in. The sex questions are completely disgusting, have to do with anal sex, oral sex, all kinds of sex that you can imagine, they're in there. So what does that have to do with anything, and why am I bringing this up? Julie and I bringing this up. Years ago, I put together a schematic after I had studied the state longitudinal database system, that shows where all of this information is collected. So you have the teacher, you have these teacher accountability vendors. We still have that in place. The local school, for-profit education vendors, all of these things go into this database. And go everywhere. This is, they go to the district, then they go to the state, then they go to the National Center for Educational Statistics, then they go to the Institute for Education Sciences, and then they're sent out to other government or private organizations or researchers. So what are those? Well, let's see, the Census, Complete College America, Food and Nutrition Services, National Center for Health Services, Administration for Children and Families, Household Education Survey, Department of Health and Human Services. Back up. EdFacts, the Electronic Individuals with Disabilities.
When they were talking about implementing this, one of the things, because we went to all of the meetings that they had at the state capitol about this, but one of the things that they said over and over again was, oh, it'll only be shared regionally. Only regionally.
Well, so now you know that it's not.
It's globally, which is what we said they were working on. And they were, oh, no, that'll never happen.
What is it that Michael says? Hashtag rope is right.
Yes, exactly.
And we have this safe and supportive school climates. Oops, I didn't get that in. This is from the National School Counselors Association. People don't understand, sadly.
Now, one of the questions, of course, when my kids were in school, one of the questions that just deflated me the most was when I would explain what was going on to educators, people in the schools, and they would say, well, what's wrong with that? I hated that question so much because it's like, you don't do that.
Yeah.
You don't share data on children, especially, I mean, look what's going on. If you, the sex trafficking, well, let's just go there. The sex trafficking is through the roof. The pornography in this country is through the roof, including child pornography. The decay of education is almost, I mean, it's bad. And
So I've started to call public schools infection centers. And do you remember when I came up with that phrase? You and I went way out to the Panhandle. Remember, they invited us to come out to talk,
when we
and
went to Diamond,
mhm,
yeah,
and one of the guys said, "Well, we'd have a lot more people here, but they're all at the school for like a special football game or something." And the guy literally said, before we had a school out here, we were like 99% conservatives, and we had kids working farms and we had kids with jobs. And he said, as soon as we got schools out here, um, and they're plugged into the state system, by the way, then all of a sudden we started seeing things that we hadn't seen before. And I really do believe that the whole idea behind schools in the first place, I mean, when you look at the Marxists that created them, were to be infection centers. I mean,
right,
if you can take pernicious ideals and people who, are not interested in them can just say, no, we don't want to be a part of that, then the pernicious ideals don't spread. But when you give people a reason to to accept the pernicious ideals spread. And by that, I mean, hey, we have this school here. You don't have to deal with your kids all day. You put them over here and we'll take care of that for you. I just,
yeah,
all you have to do is to read To Kill a Mockingbird. That book was not written. So many people have said, well, it says the N word in it, which they said during that period in time. And so we're taking it out of public schools. I don't believe that. If anybody has ever read that book, it is a damnation on public education. I mean, it absolutely is. I mean, Scout,
right,
yeah, Scout hated her public education. Um, she explains why she hates her public education. She explains what's happening there in the late 40s, early 50s as the one room school room model moves to this, more this larger model that encompasses ideas from the city schools.
right, and has to put all these administrators in between
Yeah,
students and parents. And
yeah,
you use the word conservative, and I hate to categorize a group of people. What we're talking about are people that think family is important,
yeah,
that believe in hard work and accomplishment, that believe in being generous with their neighbors, not stealing from their neighbors to get what they want done, which that is the one biggest thing the public schools have just uh, it just boggles my mind that there is no limit to how much um, teachers and educators seem to think that they can take out of families and hard workers to put into government, which that's what they are. There's no limit. There's no cutting out what, I mean, the fact that parents aren't even supposed to feed or transport their own children to the place to get academically improved, you know, the whole thing is just so messed up. and does the whole thing have to collapse? I think yes. I don't see any way to fix it because all the solutions exacerbate the problem if you're looking to government to solve the problem.
Well, you said it before. If you're looking for government to solve the problems government created,
Yeah, exactly.
you're
It's,
probably not on the
it's
right track.
right. Government is not going to solve government problems.
So we should never be left alone on our own, should we, Jules? Because we're now at a minute and an hour and 25. But I do want to point this out because of what you just said. So this is an Oklahoman article that actually just came out today. This was the 21st. Wow. I saw this morning and I thought, oh my gosh, hallelujah. We don't have a guest today. Julie and I can chew on this for a minute. So I wanted to just, oops. And then
oh, put it back up. But can you remove David Holt off of that? His picture was in the corner.
Yeah, I know. Because he's got a video. Hold on. There we go. All right.
Thank you.
All right. Why some Oklahoma parents who homeschool their children are not in favor of state support. This was written by Ben Felder. As far as I'm concerned, Ben Felder has always been biased in favor of public schools. So I noticed quite a bit of bias in this particular article. Sorry, Ben. Maybe you might change that sometime.
Almost everybody is biased in favor of public schools. So
which is why
by public schools.
Yes, which is why we get, vilified. So Ben Collins, who I think his name is Kevin Collins, is a I think it's Homeschool Oklahoma. Hold on a second, and we can find this out. Yes, Homeschool Oklahoma. I was right. He is in the Homeschool Oklahoma group. He basically said, when he went to go see legislators, he said, I said, thank you for your support. Now just please leave us alone. So there are many people, and we've talked about this before, that don't want this tax credit. So I'm going to come down here and you're going to have to bear with me because okay. State lawmakers targeted the growing homeschool community this year in its aggressive school choice package, which offers families of private school students a $7,500 refundable tax credit and a $1,000 tax credit for homeschool students. So a $7,500 refundable tax credit isn't a tax credit.
No, it's redistribution of wealth, just like the rest of it.
A tax credit is, I put this, I'm supposed to get taxed for this, but I'm going to declare that I don't need to get taxed for that, so I'll take that credit. But this is a refundable credit. So you can apply for this essentially if you're under, and I haven't even looked at the bill because guess what? Nobody even knows what the bill is, really says. There haven't been any rules that I know of that have started on this. This is all just a free-for-all, up in the air deal, as far as I know right now. And I may be wrong. And if I'm wrong, please correct.
The tax credit language snagged some of our very favorite principled legislators. That got them because they thought, oh, good, my people get to keep some of their money. I've got to vote for that.
And that is the problem. And I'm hoping we're going to be able to talk to Senator David Bullard about that next week. I believe he's going to be on the 4th because he's a very principled legislator. So many of them fell under the spell of, well, it's their money, we need to give it back. Well, $7,500, most people don't even pay that in. So you're not getting that.
Not in Oklahoma tax. It's got to be the tax that goes to the state of Oklahoma. And I don't know what your income level would have to be for you to, but it would be very high.
Yeah. So that was our main problem with that. I mean, you're not giving a tax credit, you're giving a voucher because it's a refundable, which means at the end of the year, the state gives you my money for $7,500 essentially. And everybody else's, it's just redistribution of wealth.
I mean, unless you consider that every dollar that every person has is the government's, then you know it, it's just they're just handing
Well,
out gifts from
and
the
we've talked about the fact that part of the reason why we believe this school choice thing is why they push this so much is because once they can get state money into private schools and into homeschools, they can start collecting a lot of the data that we just showed you on those schematics.
right.
And they'll say things like, we're not doing that. It goes through families. We're not even putting this through the school. That isn't that. It's, and that's fine. Okay. That's fine. But I think if you would open your eyes and realize that we're not in this country where we were in 1950. And part of the reason we're not where we are in this country is because government has grown and surpassed the boundaries that we laid down for it. And they've done that by increments and in.
Yeah. It's been happening incrementally since since the ink was dry on the Constitution.
Absolutely. And so what's going to happen is they're either going to change it from the family getting it to the school getting it, or they're going to put impositions on the families, or they're going to put impositions on the schools and say, if you're taking these families in, you need to provide X. But don't ever, ever think that government money, because it's not yours. Once the government has it, it's not yours anymore. So when you say, I want my money back,
If you
you
get
can't.
back more than you pay in, then it's certainly not your money.
Absolutely. It can't possibly
The
be.
government
And the
robbed your
government is a
neighbor.
bank.
Yeah.
So the $1,000 tax credit for homeschooled students, that's hardly going to help anybody. I mean, trust me, my homeschool bill for 4 kids ranged between, I mean, it's not going to pay for anything. I mean, it would be helpful because my bill ranged from $2,500 to $4,000 every year, depending on, what we were doing. And I had to set that aside from my budget every year at the beginning of the year to make sure, I had enough to get us through the school year doing what we needed to do.
And you sacrificed and worked hard and made that happen for your
Most
family.
most homeschoolers do. Yes.
Yes.
I thought this was, so to me, the $1,000 tax credit for homeschool students is a carrot to get undiscerning homeschool quote unquote parents into a system that can take data on their children. So I'm sorry, it will end up becoming that way. So I wanted to come down here because this was such a and here's our friend Jana Belcher. It always worries me when the government knocks on your door and says, we're going to give you something, said Jana Belcher, who has homeschooled her children for over 20 years and opposes the tax credits. Now, listen to what this says. Counting the number of homeschooled students in Oklahoma is difficult because the state does not require any registry. A parent or guardian can homeschool their child without notifying the state. Now, stop and think. Isn't that telegraphing a displeasure that somehow you can't quantify the number of homeschooled students in the state?
Right. Like that's a bad thing.
It's like it's a bad thing.
Because they didn't report. They didn't report in.
Correct.
And besides, we don't have a crystal ball. All you have to do is go look. Has there been any program in the history of our government that you got government money without government? Zero. Government's going to follow their money.
Okay. So the Oklahoman spoke with 7 families who began homeschooling since the pandemic. None wanted to be named in the article, but they shared reasons for taking their children out of public or private school to be taught at home. While some said they did it for religious reasons, one family said they were concerned about what books their child would be exposed to in public school and cited some of the, now here you go, here's bias, cited some of the claims Walters has made about pornography being prevalent in school libraries.
Along with many parents.
Correct. So think of
Like parents don't have something better to do than make up stories about pornography in schools. I mean, are you kidding me?
multiple families said homeschooling was more convenient, especially with a parent now working from home. Most families said they wanted to receive the $1,000 refundable tax credit to help pay for their curriculum or to form a local homeschool group. You don't need money to form a local homeschool group. Don't need it. I've been a part of several local homeschooling groups. You don't need state money to do that. You just get together. Okay. If
Yeah,
you need money for something, go to your church and ask if you can use a building. Okay.
exactly. And churches need to open their doors. I'm just going to put that out there too while we're talking about that.
So this one woman says, with more families choosing homeschooling, I think it makes sense that we get to use some of our tax dollars for our education. Again, it's not yours once the government has it. It becomes the government. If a robber puts a gun to your head and takes your wallet, you can't get it back. It's gone.
You don't get to tell them how to spend it.
It's the robbers. Okay. All right. So here's the thing that we've talked about before that concerns us. And Jana, actually, when Jana Belcher was on with us month before last, she said this exact same thing. Collins, the homeschool guy, said the recent growth in homeschool families, especially among those not motivated by religious or anti-government reasons, might mean many are happy to accept the tax credit. We want to educate more families on why the state needs to stay out, but some supporters of homeschooling being included in the tax credit have criticized Collins and his organization. And I want to read this, and I'm going to make sure that people can see it. We have been at cross purposes with the Oklahoma Council for Public Affairs on school choice for a long time.
Yeah.
And it appears that within the last several years, the more vocal we've become about being, and we're not anti-school choice. Oklahoma has school choice. You can homeschool your kid. You can publicly school your kid. You can put them in a public charter. You can put them in a private charter. You can put them in an online school. We have school choice. So the bottom line isn't about the bottom line.
Number one or in the top 10 of things we used to be, and maybe still are for the moment, number one in school choice.
Right.
He wants to be a number one state. Let's do it. We were.
So this isn't about that. It's about giving government money to private and homeschools. That's what this argument is about. So don't let them fool you with the school choice thing. That's not what it's about. Okay. Never been about that. But the longer we've gotten and the more we've gotten vocal about not giving money to private schools or homeschools, the more the OCPA has either come after us personally on social media. Dave Bond has come after us. Jonathan Small has come after us. Trent England has come after us on social media. It's just been, there's no reason to be ugly about it or personal, but it's become personal. And I think part of the thing is that
they're making lots of money selling their gig.
Well, I think it's important, they're a C4 organization so that they can hide their donors, but they have admitted, and several people have found out, that the Walton Foundation,
globalists, gives
them, a significant amount of money. Well, the Walton Foundation are not conservative people. They manufacture a global presence and are in fact do have globalist concerns. So I thought, education was supposed to be local. I thought that's what legislators said frequently. Well, we want local control. Yeah. Oh, and that's the other thing. Absolutely. So here's the Oklahoma Council for Public Affairs, a conservative think tank that publishes a blog and advocates for tax dollars to go to private education, recently said some groups were upset that more Oklahomans were choosing to homeschool. Now, this is Trent England who said this. Not all homeschool groups are glad to see the movement become larger and more diverse. It threatens their political clout to have too many homeschool families who see the world differently than they do, Trent England wrote in a May blog post for the council. And here it is. It'll come up with this. Here's why homeschoolers deserve school choice. Here's the thing. So aren't you practicing school choice by homeschooling?
Yes, you are.
So what even does this title to this blog post mean exactly?
It's an oxymoronic title.
So he says, consider that no homeschool family would be required to claim the school choice tax credit. It would be a choice. Was income tax ever a choice, or did they just foist it on us? I wonder how many government choices we could think of were choices before they made us do it. We had to do it before the force of law. So this notion that, I mean, Trent, you want to say that, our political clout feels threatened. Wow, that's, I mean, besides being tacky, let's just say this. So, are you not smart enough to look beyond the end of your nose? Do you not understand that government grows? What about government begets government? How do you advocate for something that can so easily become bigger and more inclusive, more forced inclusivity? We've seen that over and over again in history, and yet you want to denigrate those of us who have a problem and say that we just think it threatens our political clout. How dare you?
Besides that, Jenny, besides that, I'm going to say it again. I've said this many times before, but if those millions and millions and millions of dollars were spent not to purchase legislators and think tank organizations, but what if all those dollars went to families who wanted to homeschool? What if it went to build private schools? What if it went to, they could give a large donation to a church to become a school. They could give, they could build buildings where people could have homeschool co-ops. They could have done all these other things, but no, they want government because they want your money to come back to them, and they want control, that the kind of control that if you don't do what they say, they'll take your home. So that is the thing. They could have created school choice by donating scholarships to families to homeschool.
So let's see. So the Walton Family Foundation, instead of giving the money to OCPA to go out and
purchase legislators,
right? So they could have, just donated to a school. So what about the American Federation for Children? And I believe the person who runs the Oklahoma Federation for Children, which is the offshoot of the American Federation for Children, the one that Corey DeAngelis stumps for school choice, that he was actually employed by UNESCO. But then when we found out about that, he scrubbed that from the website, or they scrubbed that from the website so nobody would know about it, because that doesn't seem funky at all.
Right.
So
the global organization,
American Federation for Children, who pays Corey DeAngelis, I don't know how many it's well over $100,000. It may be more, like two, could donate some of that money to starting a school in Oklahoma instead of paying for somebody to go out. But let's finish what Trent England said, because I think people need to know what was said here. Consider that no homeschool family would be required to claim the school choice tax credit. Would be a choice. Those who oppose it are trying to stop other families from having that choice. They are trying to keep it harder to homeschool. Really?
Because
you can't homeschool? Really? So $1,000, Trent, $1,000 is going to make or break anybody homeschooling. People who want to homeschool are going to homeschool. They're not going to take the $1,000 just to homeschool.
Right.
Now, they'll take $1,000 as a tax credit for sure, as we've already found out, to do something other than educate their children. Wasn't that federal money that we just talked about? Cindy Bird will be on with us here in a couple of weeks to talk about the federal audit, where we found out how our state misused so many federal dollars that were being given to it to keep private schools open during COVID. And yet so many of those families use that money to buy televisions and other things. So goodness, we all know that this money is going to go to exactly what we intended for it to go to.
And besides that, I mean, you know, people should be able to have a say so in what their money goes to. People should not be paying for other people's stuff that they do that has nothing to do. Well, quite frankly, taxes should be voluntary. I'll just go there. But
at the end of this article, basically, Jana Belcher says it expands government into private education that has historically and notoriously been privately funded. When you spend government money on something, that something has to be held accountable. And then, of course, we've agreed with Jana, for years about that particular thing. But I think the thing that we need to close with, and we probably do, because this has been the longest podcast.
Please don't anybody cancel on us.
No, we won't do that to you. I swear, guess, I promise. And I may even have to go back and edit this and make it 2 different ones so that we can, people will actually hang with us the whole time. But, in closing out here, just because a Republican says it doesn't make it true. Just a Republican is a Republican. Here's the problem with the 2-party system. And this is the reason why so many communists were in favor of the 2-party system. It becomes, without thinking, just a fight. I'm going to fight this because I believe this. So it becomes a fight of Republican versus Democrat rather than right versus wrong, truth versus lie. That's what it becomes. And we have a lot of really good Republicans out there who are not being discerning about this stuff. They're just going, I want to support Ryan Walters. We need to have this federal money. I mean, even after they've said numerous times we don't need federal money, but now because it's become a fight between Republicans and Democrats, now we're changing, our foundational arguments just to stay in the fight, for example. I mean, we've got to stop doing this. How is it that we've lost the ability to be able to look at arguments instead of R's and D's? Why can't we? Where is our discernment? Christians, where is your discernment? At least think about some of these things without just going, well, the leftists say this or the Democrats say this. Stop. I think we would be so much better off. I think Julia has gone again. Poor Julia and her internet today. We've got to stop making these arguments. These arguments are not helpful. The R's versus D's, it's not helpful. What we're looking for here is what's the best thing for all Oklahomans, for all people. And that is to have enough to be able to, there she is.
So sorry. I don't even know. My internet wasn't even, it just started
doing it again, huh?
Yeah, but I mean, I still had internet. It was very bizarre.
Odd. So, just in closing out, we need to be deliberate about our deliberations. We need to be deliberate about having discernment. We need to think about things instead of reacting to things. are the things that we're championing things that are good for people. The more we're taxed, the less money, families have. The less money families have, the less they can do for their children. I mean, whether we had the money in the bank or not, and I've had several legislators say we had money in the bank, that doesn't mean that you spend it.
Well, and besides the fact that, I mean, honestly, our government is so enormous, um, and people don't even consider that government has nothing until they take it from somebody.
Right. Right.
And
Right.
that is not a good thing.
And if
And
I think another thing is too, if people have to denigrate other people and to speak ugly about other people and throw other people under the bus for lack of better verbiage, maybe you need to look at those people instead of us, who are just questioning and who are just trying to get people to think about things in a different way. I mean, that really bothers me too. I mean,
yeah, yeah, it's well, and I mean, the media, the government, whoever, they continue to keep people fighting one another, when the problem is the government.
yeah. And that's
And
right.
I mean, red versus blue, conservative versus liberal, this church versus that church. I mean, the list is endless. Pro school. I mean, I'm not, neither one of us are against education. We're against throwing dollars that are not educating. That's the problem. Academics, we care about.
Yep.
Indoctrination, we will fight. And if the
Correct.
money goes to indoctrinate, we're going to say so.
Or doesn't even do anything. It's not even, I mean, the
Right,
money that we put in, clearly we showed that using the state's own data. Clearly the
right.
money we're putting in is not having an effect. So adding an historic, $758 million or whatever it was
Nothing to
is,
brag about.
no, it's not.
Hang
It's
your
not,
heads. Hang your heads.
not at
And
all. So
adding all of those counselors, that is so ridiculous. Like I said, if you want to improve a child's mental health, help them succeed at little things and bigger things and bigger things and bigger things, and they will be
yeah,
mentally healthy.
yeah. You've got an excellent point. All right, we should probably get off of here as we
Yes, we can talk without the rest of the people listening to us.
That's exactly right, and we could for probably days. So we probably
Yeah.
should stop now while I was gonna say quit while we're ahead, but I don't know. Were we ahead?
What?
Anyway, I feel like it was, even though, we kind of had to fly by the seat of our pants this morning, I feel like, what we ended up talking about was worthy of
Right.
discussion. And I hope that if you watched and certainly you made it through all 2 hours, good night. God bless you, first of all.
Yes, and we don't, give us your comments. We love to hear from people and talk to people. We love to talk not just to each other, but we love to talk to other people as well.
Even if we disagree with you, we
Even if
actually are going to have the guest on who was brave enough to come on and we disagree. So
I, I know we've got some guests coming up. It's like, oh my gosh, they're gonna come on!
yeah,
Yay!
I mean, because we're not going to call you names.
Right,
We're going to argue your policy, not your person.
right. Issues, issues, issues.
Correct. So anyway, Julia, it's good to be with you, and I hope. Oh, it's going to be nice tomorrow. Cool weekend.
Yay!
So I know we might have a nice weekend, and thank everybody for watching. May God bless you, and have a wonderful weekend. And we'll see you again on Wednesday. And on Wednesday, I can bring that up and tell you we are going to have.
We're gonna have Michelle Fenno. She is a longtime friend and she has been a teacher for a whole lot of years. She saw some things going south in the public schools and spoke up, and it wasn't pretty, but she went from public schools to a Christian school, and then back to Epic, which she has
Oh,
really enjoyed being an Epic teacher, because of the dynamics there, with the students. Um, she likes, you know, that kind of situation a lot better. But um, but she's gonna be a great guest. And then on Friday is Lauren Straka. She also she started a daycare years and years ago, and then it became a preschool. Her mom works with her at the daycare, and her mom was my kids' children's church minister. So these are very dear people to me. And Lauren also has 7 children, so she's kind of an expert in that way.
I would say so.
So anyway, but she was a daycare, then a preschool, and now she's expanding from that. And just because she sees people's needs, and she's a wonderful person that wants to be the answer, the solution.
Yeah.
So
Well,
so
that sounds good. So we'll have those ladies Wednesday and Friday of next week. So,
yeah,
and we're pretty much all booked up through August. We've just got a
yeah,
couple of left to fill, and I think everybody will really enjoy who we've got to visit with in August as well.
yes, yeah.
So
August is going to be powerful.
I agree. So good to see you again, Julia.
Alrighty.
Have a great weekend. Everybody have a great weekend, and we'll see you again on Wednesday. Thanks for joining us.